A pleasant good morning to everyone, and welcome to another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Yours truly, Carlos Brown. Glad you can join us. Our guest menu looks like this today. We have Rodney Kirschner. He's Associate Deputy Athletic Director for Southern University. He will be joining us in hour number 2. Now, for simply what's trending. We always have the what's trending. The Black College Sports Network Pod Zone number one, as stated by Million Podcasts. So congratulations to the Black College Sports Network and all those that are involved in this Black College Sports Network. We truly appreciate it. Also, there's a bill in Congress that would bar using student athletic fees for athletics. There's a bill in Congress that will bar using student fees for athletics. And then last but not least, we'll take a look at the NBA free agency. Some news that has taken place since the last time we talked to you. Now, without further ado, let's bring in the panel. They will join us as always, one by one. They'll be coming in. Willa Brown, good afternoon, live from Baltimore.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Charles Edmond, good morning to you, sir.
Good morning.
And Coach Van Pettaway, good morning to you. Good morning.
Good morning, Carlos. Good morning.
Good morning to the panel. A lot has happened this past week, so I guess we will have to give ourselves a pat on the back. Black College Sports Network, the Pod Zone, number one, as presented by Million Podcasts. Also, Dr. Cavill's Inside the HBCU Sports Lab was ranked number one. So here goes with the kudos and the thank yous to Roy Evans, CEO of Black College Sports Network. Also, Melanie Edwards, producer on the Black College Sports Network. She Say Sports, Sonia Stamps, the OG Strike Zone, Black College Sports Network Sports Wrap, and including Grumpy Old Men. And that's just the sports piece of the Black College Sports Network. Also want to thank everyone in the audience who every week tune in. We were running a few minutes late, and they already were asking, where is everyone? Where is the Carlos Brown Show? So we appreciate those in the audience, the followers. Also, this past week, we didn't know, but at the time, our show made HBCU Game Day Stephen Gaither's article, Can HBCUs Turn Millenniums and Gen Z into Donors? And he produced the article. Shout out to Stephen Gaithers. So, with that being said, guys, as I've often stated, no one can tell the story like we can. And we can, meaning Black College Sports Network, African Americans, and there's a whole list of podcasters out there. But to be number one, I'm pretty happy. And so the work continues. We will keep doing what we need to do to tell the story. What say you, panel, about that number one ranking?
I think it's a great achievement for the Black College Sports Network, and for that just goes to show you that there are a lot of people out there that are putting in the work, and they're benefiting, and they're getting the results. And so my hat's off to them. Congratulations to everybody that's involved with it. And then, like you said, the biggest congratulations needs to go out to your fans, to the people that tune in every week, because they're the ones that have put Black College Sports Network out there. And I'm just happy that for our part in it.
Willa, the hardliner, the affectionately known. It does make you feel good. It really
does, Carlos. There's no doubt about that. There's a proverb. I think it's 27 verse 4 says something about let somebody else praise you and not your own mouth, that
Yeah.
sort of thing. And so it's always good when somebody else outside of you and outside of the circle recognizes the work that you put in. I'm just grateful to be along for the ride with you guys. It's helped me to kind of stay relevant, in the game. And so, I'm blessed for that and really appreciate you guys having me along for the ride.
Appreciate you, Willa, and everybody on the panel. Charles Edmond, what say you?
Hey, congratulations. 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 Job well done. Roy Evans, he's been grinding with this thing for a long, long time. And I didn't know much about the Black College Sports Network till a few years ago. And Carlos, I think it was through you. And so I appreciate what Roy has done. I appreciate you, Carlos. I appreciate Roy and giving me the opportunity to be a part of this fantastic organization. Job well done, and looking forward to continuing the message. There's a lot out there, so there's a lot more messages to be talked about for sure. But glad to be a part of it.
Well, I'm sure we'll get into a topic or two today. I also want to thank Dr. Kenyatta Cavill because
Yep.
we had a relationship established when I was on local radio in Baton Rouge. Charles, you were part of that. And so through Dr. Cavill, he reached out to me about coming on to the Black College Sports Network.
Right.
And so that's where I've been for the last, I think it's 3 years now. Time flies. So once again, appreciate to everyone because hey, a number one ranking is great, but Coach, I'll use a coaching philosophy. You're number one in the polls, but you gotta keep it on.
Yep.
Keep that ranking, and there's still more work to be done. Now, our second trending story is there's a bill in Congress that will bar using student fees for athletics. And during the week, we kind of had in our group text messages a lot to say about that. A lot to say about that. And Wheeler, as always, when you came on the text message, you was like, that this could be really, really tough
That's the death
for
sentence, Carlos. Ain't no doubt
yeah.
about it. That's the death sentence, for all of our institutions.
Yep.
I don't think there's an HBCU who hovers less than 50% in terms of their athletic department being funded by student fees. I would
Mhm.
venture to say everybody's over 50%. And some of the schools are probably upwards of 75, maybe close to 80% in terms of depending on student fees. So while I'm against using those dollars for NIL and that sort of thing, don't pay the kids with it. No, definitely don't want to do that. But for us to survive, we gotta have that. We gotta have that. And so I've been a part of institutions where it's always come up every year in terms of trying to get an increase, that sort of thing. And my thing has always been to let's try to kind of decrease that. Trying to wean ourselves off of that. And I think when I first got to A&T, I think we were like at maybe 70% in
Mm.
terms of student fees and our athletic budget. And I think when I left out of A&T, I think we had gotten down to like maybe 60%, 61%, somewhere around there. So, we talk about accomplishments on the job. That would be a big one for me, for us to kind of decrease our dependency on student fees. But I mean, you gotta have it. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You gotta have it.
Yeah, Coach Pettaway, there was an article a few years ago, and you can probably go and look at certain websites that will show you what's the percentage of student athletic fees
Right.
to the budget, and as uh, Willer stated, it's over 50%, if my memory serves me correct. Even when I looked up Southern University's percentage, but this was a bill to regulate college sports introduced in the House on Thursday and would offer limited antitrust protection for the NCAA while barring schools from using student fees to pay for college athletic programs. So now it was a bill that was introduced. The bill includes the three elements the NCAA has lobbied for: antitrust protection, preemption of state laws that regulate name, images, and likeness payments, and the section that prevents athletes from becoming employees of their school. Now, if we go down a little bit more, it also includes a section that purports to protect Olympic programs that some see as threatened because of increased funding that will go to football and basketball. That part calls on schools with at least one coach who earns more than 250,000 to offer at least 16 sports programs. That language mirrors a rule already in effect for the NCAA top tier FBS schools. Also, it goes on in the article to say athletic fees. Now, Clemson early this year announced it would implement a $150 athletic fee each semester for students starting this fall. Fresno State, another well-known college, improved fees of an additional $495 a year, about half of which is to be directed toward athletics. And other schools like Tennessee have announced a talent fee to be added to season ticket renewals. And it goes on and on. Arkansas. I remember when I was at Southern University, in which it was from 2005 to 2010, the Student Government Association president would always meet with the student body when there was a request for an increase in student
Mm-hmm.
athletic fees. And they did a good job. They were transparent. And I voted yes every time, because they were transparent. One time it was track and field needed something. Um, Also, I think one year the band was wanted to go to every away football game, so that was approved. So the athletic fees, um, as Willa stated, they're very important. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a must have. It's a
Mm-hmm.
must have.
Right. And for years, when I was still coaching at A&M, uh, they instituted a fee. They wanted to build a student health and wellness center, and they added another fee. I'm gonna say I think it was $100
Mhm.
extra, and that money went towards that building. But for 4 years, that money was taken out, and so those students never got an opportunity to
Mhm.
to be in that facility because
Mm-hmm.
it took that long before the place was built. So I think our institutions are used to coming up with creative ways of coming up with money through student fees and stuff. But I think the big thing now, if we can keep it to where you're not using the money to pay the athletes, I think it'll go
Mm-hmm.
over better. It'll go
Mhm.
over better, but there's gonna be a lot of pushback if you try to come up with that student athletic fee or increase the fee, and they say that it's going to the athletes. A lot of people are not going. A lot of students are
Mm-hmm.
not going for that. But
Mm-hmm.
to increase your because the cost of going to a basketball game, a football game, the cost of having concerts and all this other stuff on campus, all that has gone up. The cost has gone up. So you can, to me, add a little bit more to the student athlete fees, but it should not be going to the athletes. To pay the athletes is what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And you remember I talked about a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, the state of Louisiana introduced a bill for extra monies going toward what was it, facilities. It couldn't
Right.
go to NIL, and that bill is waiting for the signature at the governor's desk.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all part of the House settlement, and now it's time to pay the piper. And
Mm-hmm.
so, with that being said, once again, it's an ever-changing athletic landscape, and you got to have, I believe, good administrative leadership to kind of
Mm-hmm.
navigate through these trying times. Because it look like every month something is changing,
Mm-hmm.
something is happening, and you know, I talked about the haves and the have-nots in the athletic um, landscape, but somebody said, Carlos, it's always been a big gap. It's
Mm-hmm.
always has been a big gap,
Yep.
and
Mm-hmm.
and they don't see it changing anytime soon. So as we navigate through it, you have to have good leadership, both from an athletic standpoint, also from an administrative standpoint. They've got to be hand in hand with the athletic department and vice versa. And then also, I think you're blessed to have a commissioner that's doing the right thing as well. So leadership, being transparent, and talking with everyone, letting them know where you're at this particular moment in this college landscape, Charles.
You
Yeah,
know, and your budget has got to be on a swivel also. Because anytime you got that much of a dependency on student fees, enrollment is critical.
Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm.
and
Yep.
every semester you're always losing kids. You got a number of kids that don't come back for the spring, and so those are dollars that you got to start to subtract, from your budget. So it's crucial. There's no doubt about that. It's crucial. I know Norfolk State. I'm talking probably about maybe 10 or 12 years back. Their student fees was like $1,200, $1,300 a year. So
Hmm.
you had kids paying like $650, $700 a semester. And just in athletic fees. Yeah, so it's it comes and goes. When I was at Jackson State, it was only like $125 a semester, which
Hmm.
was great. On the students' behalf, no doubt about that. But like Charles was saying, there are going to be some times when you're trying to get some things done, on campus, facility wise, that sort of thing. And if you go to the kids honestly and up front about it, and as long as you're not trying to break the bank, you will be able to kind of squeeze a few more dollars out of there. But it's got to be something very, very important.
yeah, I would say, just for Alcorn's perspective, that student fee that encompasses with your gold card, you can get into any athletic event and not have to pay. So
Hmm.
that's a part of at least what Alcorn is doing. I think a lot of our schools are doing that. A lot of our schools in the conference and HBCUs. Um, and as we mentioned, you pay for concerts. We have homecoming concert. We have a Spring Fest, a Brave Fest concert in the spring. Those student fees are used to pay for that performer or
Hmm.
performers. That's a part of that fee. I would imagine that if you're talking about paying student athletes directly from that fee by increasing the fee, I think there would be a problem.
Hmm.
I think there'll be a problem across the board because let's be honest. Tuition is already high enough as it is. If you talk to
Hmm.
you're paying a lot of money out of pocket. You're going to probably be paying more because financial aid is going to be less. So now you're already struggling to pay for tuition to begin with, and
Hmm.
now you're relying on financial aid, which was at a certain amount, which could possibly be decreased, based on what you're hearing and reading from the Department of Education. So now
Hmm.
you're looking at that aspect of it, and I think that's going to be a challenge. And Carlos, as you mentioned, this what you talked about with Arkansas and Tennessee, this was last year. This was before this was made the law of the land. They already were trying to get ahead of it by incorporating a potential jock fee or student athlete fee for season tickets. Now, I don't want to go to that level, but their schools already were trying to get ahead of that. So the question becomes, how are you going to pay for this potential, windfall of payments to student athletes, whether it's through the university, through more your Pell Grant, through athletics, through your collective? You're already seeing mass confusion, hysteria, potential lawsuits. You're already seeing this thing start to unravel a little bit. And I think at our level, we just have to be responsible. We have to understand the student athletes' needs and do the best that we can in this new landscape.
Right. And see, Carlos, that's going to go back to what we were talking about last week. We've got to find a way to reach the students who are there now, and then also the alumni base. We got to find a way to give back. Now, one of the things that I think at A&M that's happening, Dr. Bryan has found a way to reach the young people because we got more young people giving now back to the university as a whole and to athletics, whereas it wasn't happening before. I mean, at this rate, at this rate. So he's done an outstanding job since he's been there, reaching out. And I think they're doing some of the conventional stuff, social media. Like Carlos, when I came out in 2011, this social media stuff had just started. The way it is now. We didn't have all this stuff, different avenues to reach people, and now I think he's using it. He's got a staff that that's all they do. They do the social media side of stuff. So the donations are going up, and we just got to continue to work with the present student athletes that are in school now, and then we got to reach back to those other young alumni who just left, and get them into the art of giving annually. Not a one-time gift. They got to give annually. That's what that's the only difference between us and the PWIs. They do it on an annual basis, whereas we do one-time stuff. So we
And
got
you,
to be more of that.
I understand the economic plight for some, and as I stated a couple of weeks ago, give what you can.
Right.
And also there is two layers. You got alumni that gives back, but then there's also supporters who are not alums, but that
Right.
supports the program. I talk to
Mm-hmm.
one all the time, and he said, "Look, I didn't set foot in a classroom at Southern University, but I grew up on the campus." And he's a supporter. So there is a difference between those two. You really need both. You remember I gave the analogy of a lot of people who work at Exxon Refinery in Baton Rouge, huge place. Not all of them are Southern graduates. A good bit are, but they are. You put in the category of supporters. So you need both. And I think again, if you're transparent, give the information out. Call me naive, but I think people will respond accordingly. And that's what we're looking for. Then also we talked about um, student athletes getting paid. You're not paying everybody. As after the show, Coach Graves told me not everybody is getting paid on set teams. So there's kind of a pushback about that. So where to go from that? Maybe Rodney Kirschner, who's coming up in hour number 2. I know at Southern, Coach Banks talked about establishing a collective, and to me, that is just as good to me as NIL.
Right. But
To
it's not
establish,
only affecting us. Did you all hear read the comments from the Big 12 Media Day? They're talking about you need to put a cap. There needs to be a salary cap. They talked about, and the same thing you just said. All players aren't made the same. They should not get the same. They're saying frontline players should have a established rate. Secondary players should have an established rate, and then everybody on the team does not benefit from that money now.
well, yeah, good luck on that.
Mm.
And,
No,
and,
but it's happening now, Carlos.
no, yeah, I understand. But you know what, Coach Petaway, I don't feel sorry for those guys because I put them in the halves category.
Right.
Um, Wheeler, you talked about, I don't want to lose my thought. You talked about in past shows as well, as far as how do we keep our
Mm-hmm.
athletic departments viable. Now, I just said the
Mm-hmm.
haves and the have-nots. Let's be honest. Are some of us in between? There's no in between to me. So we're probably on the other end, the have-nots. But some of us in the have-not category are doing better or are better off than
Right.
That's
others.
true. That's true. But we can't get into a thing where we're trying to keep up with the Joneses.
No, sir.
That's not going to work for us. And I've always been a proponent of, if you can't pay everybody, don't pay nobody.
Hmm.
Because it's going to be some animosity there, Carlos, at some point in time. It definitely is. If I'm playing left tackle, okay, and I ain't getting a dime, and my quarterback is all world, and I'm the one responsible for keeping his jersey clean, that sort of thing, and he's lighting it up and getting paid, and I ain't getting paid. It, it's going to be some issues there. It's just a matter of time. Whether guys are joking around in the dorm room or in the locker room or what have you. They always say some truth in every joke. Yeah, but it's going to be some times when those things are going to come out. And it has the potential to damage your team, to damage your team's psyche. So, I've always, like I said, I'm the thing. If you can't pay everybody, don't pay nobody. Everybody works hard in practice every day. The person that runs track is working just as hard as the person that's playing football in terms of time spent and trying to be the best person that they can be, that sort of thing. So I mean, you got to break all. Everybody got to wet the beak, as they say in The Godfather.
Hmm.
Well,
You got to wet everybody's beak if you can. And if you're not able to do that, my thing is don't pay anybody.
all right.
But
Now,
but
Willie,
what
what
does that
about
look like though? I mean, so
Willie?
we're
Willie,
talking about paying. Okay, so what are we talking about? Are we discounting the football scholarship, which pays for everything, your tuition, your room and board, your meal?
Mm-hmm.
That's pay. They're
Yeah.
paying for you to go to school. All right. So is that it? Or you're talking about your scholarship, which is the borderline baseline, and then in addition to your scholarship being your school being paid, you want some other monies to put in your pocket. Is that what the conversation is about as well? Like the scholarship is basic, it's fundamental. You're going to get a scholarship. You may not get 100%, but you're getting something. But you got to come out of pocket potentially, which could be a problem, which could be an issue. So what are you talking about? I mean, this is a question I'm going to ask. Not everyone's going to get paid, but when you're talking about getting paid, are you talking about at least your scholarship, your school being paid for? Is that baseline? If you do that and don't get paid anything else, is that okay? Or are you looking for that and a little bit more as far as money in your pocket?
I think you're looking at that and more. That's my thought on it. We're talking about the added dollars, not the scholarship dollars. To me, the scholarship thing is a given. Hopefully, everybody that's on the roster can qualify and receive a
Hmm.
scholarship, but only after all that takes place. Now you're trying to divvy up extra dollars, so to speak. I like, like Coach Petway was talking about previously in terms of the needy fund.
Right.
You knew that those dollars were getting to kids who actually had some kind of need there. And
Right.
and that was okay. And it was getting to damn near everybody. If
Right.
you qualified in terms of, having need, that sort of thing, based off of, your FAFSA and all those other things that they take into consideration, you were getting that check at the end or during the middle of every semester. And,
Right.
that was golden. That was gold for a lot of kids.
Right. And see,
So
Willie,
for me, if I'm doing that with my kids, then we okay. You're not gonna have to worry about anybody, ostracizing anybody else simply because somebody's getting more money than me, that sort of thing. We all getting what they call the needy fund
Hmm.
dollars because we
right.
all got some need there. And
Right
my
now,
need might be a little greater than yours, and if that's the case, then naturally I should probably get a few more dollars, that sort of thing. You don't know how many parents are waiting for that needy fund check to come out every semester. My phone used to ring off the hook.
Hmm.
Mr. Brown, my son or my daughter hadn't got their needy fund check yet. Y'all know we need this here at home. that
Right.
sort of thing. So a lot of those kids were getting those dollars, they were sending them home, parents paying rent and buying food and groceries and all that sort of thing. So, that's what I'm talking about, Charles, in terms of the extra dollars, not the scholarships. The scholarships to me is a given. Yeah,
Right.
and you can't talk about paying anybody until all your sports are fully funded from a scholarship point of view.
Right.
Everybody should meet that threshold in terms of fully funding their scholarships.
Hmm.
If baseball is 25 scholarships, everybody, they should be getting 25 before I start paying people extra dollars and I'm not meeting the threshold in terms of all my kids on scholarship getting full scholarships.
Right. Now,
And
Will.
that's just my thought.
Now, Will. It goes back to there's always been an imbalance. I'm gonna give you a prime
Mm-hmm.
example. I
Uh-huh.
qualify for Pell Grant. You don't. All
Mm-hmm.
right. You don't qualify, but we on the same team. I
Mm-hmm.
get my Pell Grant. I get that $5,800 back.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a dime.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get a dime, Wheeler.
But at least, Coach Pettaway, I know that I'm not getting a dime because of my financial situation. My parents make too much money. My FAFSA has said XYZ, that sort of thing. So I don't qualify for those extra dollars. Whereas, you probably got 7 or 8 brothers and sisters there and all that sort of thing. Mom not hardly making any money, that sort of thing. And so, you're going to qualify for more. So that's always been the case. When I was a student athlete at A&T, I think I got like maybe $4,000 a semester,
Hmm.
okay, in terms of refund from the Pell Grant. And that was because of my home financial situation.
Right.
I got that check and I sent that right home. You
Right.
know. Now what I didn't send home was the $20 laundry money that we got every month or what have you. I put that in the pocket and use that to pay to wash my clothes and that sort of thing. But the Pell Grant refund that went straight home. No ifs,
Hmm.
ands, and buts about it.
Right. But Wheeler, my point is there's always been a difference in
Mm-hmm.
athletes receiving money. So
Uh-huh.
so so now with the new system that they're putting in place now where you can pay athletes, there is no way these HBCUs are gonna be able to give out maximum
No.
scholarships for each
No.
sport and then turn around and try to do NILs and pay these kids. It's not gonna happen.
Absolutely right. You're absolutely right,
It's not
Coach
gonna
Pettaway.
happen. You're not gonna be able to pay every athlete, man. They got to come up with a formula, and I think that's probably why the women are suing now. I mean, you got women
Mm-hmm.
athletes who are suing now because that collective, the money that the NC2A is suggesting is unfair to the women's sport, female sport.
Mm-hmm.
That's why they're putting it in. So there's gonna be a disparity, and I don't care what level you on when it comes to football is gonna get the bulk of whatever money's out there. They're gonna
Mm-hmm.
give it to football. That's they're gonna do that. Whether it's fair or not, that's gonna happen. And I think more people, Carlos, are gonna look
Mm-hmm.
at trying to make sure they take care of the revenue sponsoring, the revenue sports first. Then they're gonna have to look at the other sports. I think that's gonna be across the board now.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
because I read it's 75% to men's football.
Right.
Well, don't say men's football. Football.
Football.
Then
Right.
it's 15% to men's basketball,
Right.
and then
Mm-hmm.
5% to women's basketball.
And then the other 5 is for the rest of the sports. The
So,
other 5% is for
mhm.
all of the rest of the sports.
Well, someone's going to come in and say, "Well, the football is the engine that runs the train," and if they could, they would like to put football out of the equation, you know, to, for themselves. But with that being said, I'm gonna go back to so since everybody's not going to get paid, it's going to be payment's going to be unequal. Isn't a collective maybe the better way to go versus the NIL?
Well, you have some collectives that are still trying to get going. Number one, trying to get off the ground. I interviewed the director of our collective the other night, and he was saying that look, we're kind of partnering with athletics. Athletics has to be the first step, and then the collective comes behind that, kind of an addition. So the collectives are totally separate from the university. So I think that's where, and of course, collectives get their money from donors who participate in that process. And I think some schools are still trying to get that off the ground. Ours, we have a few, but it's just relied on donors. But if there's not a lot in the collective, there's only so many athletes that they can get behind.
Right.
And athletics is going to have to take the lead role. In our case, our athletic and our collective director and our athletic director are going to have a conversation because there has to be a plan going forward. This is for our collective, the 1871 collective, as far as athletics is concerned, because I wanted to know, how that works. So there has to be a conversation first to lay it all out there. But if you have these collectives that are not deeply funded, that's going to be an issue. And I don't know how it is at Southern. I don't know how it is at Grambling. We kind of heard about what's going on at Grambling and getting their collective off the ground. How is it at Florida A&M? If those collectives aren't fully funded, there's only so much the university is going to be able to do. There's only so much the collective is going to be able to do. And that's going to leave, some people kind of either left out in the cold or shortage somewhere. So that's kind of where I'm thinking. You got to have flush funds in the collective. And is that happening at our schools 1 through 12? I don't know. If I would guess, I would say no. Some a little bit better than others. But are we are our collectives fully funded?
Well, that should be the goal because we had Coach Roman Banks on. You remember a couple of years ago or a year ago, and that's what he was trying to get started to get it started. How many of our universities have that? Probably not many, but there comes a point where you got to start. And I know when you have to start, you have to have your I's dotted and your T's crossed. But that is something that I'm saying maybe is something to look into getting started. It's back to the haves and the have-nots. It's still that way. But you got to start somewhere. How do we start? When do we start?
But Carlos, we talk about football being the bell cow or what have you, and at the end of the day, ain't nobody really making any money.
Hmm.
You look at if you compare just the revenue from football to the expenses for football, okay, that bottom line would be slim and none. You're spending almost as much money on the sport as you're bringing in. There's no doubt about that. It just looks good from the outside looking in, and everybody thinks football is bringing in all this, that, and the other. But if you just have football standing alone, no other sports, okay, and just depending on the football money to fund football, scholarships, salaries, the whole 9 yards.
Insurance.
At the end of the day, you're probably only talking like maybe a $15, $20, $25,000 difference in terms of revenue to expenses. It's that tight. It's that close.
That's just for football.
That's just for football, period. You're not even talking
Mhm.
about the other sports, that sort of thing. You're not talking about basketball and all that sort of thing. You're talking about football being able to pay for football. And I'm telling you, 90%, 95% of the time, it doesn't even up. It doesn't even up.
Well, some people in the chat room say, "Well, drop down to Division 2." Well, that won't happen because they have pride and all kind of adjectives you can put in that the equation.
If any
Um,
president or any AD even mentions that in any conversation in any podcast, they probably will be out of a job.
They be boiled in oil.
They will be,
Tar and feathered.
they will be out of a job almost immediately, within a week. I guarantee you that. And that, look, some fans have talked about that. Well, maybe it's just best that we drop the Division II. That's what, based on the conversations we've had and others. But if you have an administrator even mention it, utter that one sentence, and it gets out, it's on a camera somewhere where it gets out on social media, it would be very difficult to walk that back. It'll be almost impossible to get over that, because we know that there are some schools right now, we know what our budgets look like, what Alcorn's budget looks like, and others that are kind of down there. But people have said, it's time to drop the D2 in some of these programs. Won't happen. Will not happen.
Well, even if you go D2, Carlos, D2, you're not keeping the same budget that you have as a D1 school. Everything is decreased, especially in terms of NCAA dollars, that sort of thing. So if Southern, quote unquote, believe that going D2 and they're going to continue to have that $18 million budget,
I knew you was going to say that.
It's not going to happen.
I knew you was going to say that. I knew you was going to say that. What are you saying? Southern has the largest budget?
For Wheeler to even mention Southern and D2 in the same sentence, my goodness.
Heaven forbid, right? Blasphemy.
Yeah.
I told the story about a board of supervisor who moved the game from was in favor of moving the game from Baton Rouge to Jackson for Jackson State. By the way, that guy's back on the board of supervisors. It was a mutiny. I mean, I guess he had bodyguards and all that kind of stuff. Because the legislatures was like, what? This was done? This better not happen again. And then how we talked about last week, the business community. They weren't happy about that. That was a prime home game. Jackson State coming. They're coming to Baton Rouge this year.
Mm-hmm.
And by the way, FAMU. So the business part, they were disappointed.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, as we go to our first time out, we've got to still fight. We still got to do what we need to do to survive. And I think we have enough intelligent people to get it done. Wheeler, the athletic landscape is just changing.
Yes, it is. Yes, it has. There's no doubt about it.
What does Adrian say? Carlos, don't say that because they don't believe in the 18 million sports budget. Adrian is starting trouble in there again. Also, it's interesting as the comments pour in. Christopher Dukes, and while you're laughing, so would a few of the SWAC and mix schools would be too. Boy, you got to have good leadership. You got to be transparent, and you got to work together. That's the thing I keep harping on. And you learn something every day. Yeah, Southern has a huge budget.
Well, Carlos,
but not a big plus as far as money wise.
You'll there are some D1 programs, FBS, that can't afford to be FBS.
Definitely.
They're glorified FCS programs. I mean, we can start. I'm not even going to go there, but we know that there are programs, some in Louisiana, that are FBS that really can't afford to be FBS. They're glorified FCS.
But they're doing it.
But they're doing it. I mean, but it's kind of the same thing, though. I mean, they're going to fight tooth and nail to stay FBS. If you mention FCS to some of these schools that we know, the president, the board, they'll all be fired. And even though the dollars, the data, we always talk about data. The data says otherwise, that you can't compete with the Auburns of the world and the Georgias of the world.
You can't.
You can't. But if you
mention, they say Charles Pride won't let us slide.
Right. Pride won't let us.
Well,
But
well, well.
we're not the only ones. I'm just, if we're just
Yeah.
expanding the conversation. But look,
Mm-hmm.
every year when we have these conversations, it gets talked about. Some of our schools do need to drop the D2, whatever the case. And when you these are fans now. When you mention that and you take it up the chain, people will push back and will fight you tooth and nail about it. And so it's a conversation we're gonna continue to have. And I don't know if this landscape, maybe it's going to be a harder or more brutal reality. Not saying they're going to do it, but the conversation will probably get harder as we go along because it's going to be harder to maintain.
Well,
Mm-hmm.
didn't I say we're gonna have a timeout? No, we need
Yeah.
to get to a timeout. But also FCS football, Division 1 and other sports. Have you seen the landscape changing? Lo and behold, McNeese. You heard of that university, right? They're trying to go FBS in football. It's that big pile of money, so-called pile of money up there. Everybody's going for it. They're trying to go for it at least. I think that would be a bad move. A bad move on McNeese's part.
Yeah, I text somebody, Carlos, about that the other day when it was brought up. They have the $5 million for the NCAA, so they have the exit fee to move up. They have the money to do that. No exit fee from the Southland is the text I got on that. So I don't know.
Still, still bad move in my
Yeah,
my
yeah.
opinion.
I'm just saying it's just I just made the reference because it did seem odd. I mean, if you just look at McNeese's situation, they've improved their football stadium, but do they have the budget to maintain to go FBS? I found that quite interesting, and we'll see. People, schools are ready to take that plunge, and then we've had some schools go back.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Schools go back. So I mean, the dollars got to make sense, or else you're gonna have to make a brutal decision. So time
And
will
it,
tell that.
and I just think it's in what conference you're in. I think it's what part of the country you're in because you got some FCS programs that they got FBS money now. You think
Mm-hmm.
Montana State, you think North Dakota, North
Uh-huh.
Dakota State, they got FBS money, man,
Mm-hmm.
for the FCS programs.
Mm-hmm.
And that's
Well,
what and then Carlos, when we start talking about looking at who we should model ourselves at, we should be trying to reach that level of FCS, man. The
well,
level of what they're FCS just like us. Let's work to get up there. Charles, I see you got that. Go ahead, Charles.
Carlos, do you guys remember about 15 years ago there was supposed to have been a secret powwow between four of our schools? Remember about talking about going up to FBS? Remember that? I don't know who was in that meeting, but there was allegedly, supposedly, a meeting trying to determine whether the viability of certain schools in our conference to move up. I don't know what came out of that powwow, but it was definitely that's why I was smiling because we're talking about that level. And
Yep.
how long ago was that, Carlos? Maybe 15 years ago, there was kind of a discussion. Grambling, Jackson, I can call names.
Alabama
Grambling,
State.
Jackson,
There's
Alabama
always
State.
been talk here in the state of Alabama of Alabama State threatening to go to the Sun Belt and all this kind of mess, man. So, but we're not even funding ourselves at the top of the FCS. So how are you looking at FBS? Let's just move. Let's improve where we are. That's what we got to do.
And when the time comes, Coach Petaway, they still ain't coming to our school
Oh,
in
right,
terms of in terms of gate, that sort of thing. They're not
right.
coming to our schools. But we're going in there and filling their stadium up like we always do.
Yep.
And that's what makes us attractive to them. But on the flip side, I mean, you could hear rat lick ice, so to speak. Yeah, when the time comes, it just
Right.
ain't happening. It ain't
well,
happening.
well. I had the pleasure. Dr. Kenyatta Kavir came to my house where I'm at right now, and he was commissioned to do a study as far as moving up. Of course, in football, right? FBS, but with Division 1 and all other sports, right? not to give too much information on that, but I got a chance to look at it and peek at it. And it came to the conclusion that we were not ready to make that move
Right.
at that time. So, there was conversation, then an actual study done. And of course, this was years ago.
Are we better equipped now than we were then?
No.
I would say no.
Right.
And I would say no also. I look at
because the
A&T
cost of
right
doing
now.
athletics has also gone up.
Go up. Yes.
I look at A&T right now, Carlos. They're in the CAA.
Mm-hmm.
And the average budget in the CAA is $23 million yearly. That's
the overall budget.
That's the overall budget.
Okay.
Overall athletic budget in the CAA is $23 million per year.
That's fine.
A&T right now is at maybe 17.
Oh wow,
that's
almost close to 18 million.
Yeah, but you 6, 7, 8 million behind the 8 ball, walking in the door.
Right.
And that was the question everybody wanted to know: how are we going to make that gap? How are we going to fill that gap? Yeah, and 2 years from now, 3 years from now, they're still trying to fill it. And it's not happening. And so while they're doing well in some of the other sports, some of the other non-revenue sports, that sort of thing, track and field always been good for them. In football right now, they haven't measured up yet. Men's basketball, they haven't measured up yet. Women's basketball is doing well. But, you still, without trying to find a way to cover that gap, I mean, as Coach Pettaway said, we got to be the best we can in FCS.
Right.
Let's be the best FCS school that we can be.
Where we're at now.
Yeah.
Yes.
On that note, we need to take a time out. When we come back, it'll be more of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return.
There's a shot.
That
Right.
might be.
It could be. Right field. Grand slam. What a shot. That's how you get hot, young fella.
Thank you guys for what you do for HBCU athletics. This is a fantastic avenue for all of us. This is our ESPN, so we love what you guys do, and all you guys at BCSN. We really appreciate what it is that you guys do for us.
The human voice has always connected audiences with experiences. Major brands all across America have trusted Kever's voice time and time again. Conversational, powerhouse, intelligent, and sincere. That's the voice you need for your creative marketing process. KEAVERSVOICE.com. Kever's Voice, Kever's Voice, KeversVoice.com. Always on, all the time.
This is Ryan Fulford. A.D. Drew and I are co-hosts of the BCSN Sports Wrap. We talk about all things related to HBCU athletics. From the games, teams, coaches, and fan interest stories, we cover it all. You can find our shows on Facebook at BCSN Sports Wrap, YouTube at MyJBN Online, and everywhere you listen to podcasts like Anchor, Spotify, Google, and Apple Podcasts. You can also find the show on the Jericho Broadcast Network's app. Make sure to download. We look forward to you joining the conversation and being a part of the show.
Football fans, HBCU football is back in the ATL with the Cricket MEAC SWAC Challenge Kickoff. Representing the MEAC, North Carolina Central, and representing the SWAC, Southern Eagles, Jaguars, the Marching Sound Machine, the Human Jukebox. The kickoff trophy is up for grabs, and bragging rights are on the line. The rivalry is real. Bring the family and join us pre-game for the fun-filled Coca-Cola fan experience, including band jamborees, food, activations, and fellowship. For tickets and information, visit MEACSWACChallenge.com.
Welcome back to this week's edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Yours truly, Carlos Brown, Charles Edmond, Willa Brown, Coach Van Pettaway. We're going to have our special guest, Rodney Kirschner, coming up in a second. In the chat room, and I appreciate everybody in the chat room. They're having a dialogue, a conversation. Someone named Edwin. I absolutely agree with Edwin and Willa. To the point was when other teams come to visit A.W. Mumford Stadium, I could care less if they bring any fans.
True.
You would like a few, but
Mm-hmm.
it's more so our fans are going to pack the stadium. Now,
Mm-hmm.
Willa, don't talk about the largest budget now, okay?
Mm-hmm.
With Southern University, but
Well, we always should be able to depend on our people to fill our stadium. I've
Mhm.
always been a proponent of that. Yeah, I've preached that far and wide.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the same time, Carlos, we know that historically that's not happening. And our people want to see teams or schools that they're interested in.
Yep.
And they're not interested in Louisiana Baptist or Louisiana Bible. That don't thrill them. So, we have to meet them part of the way in terms of having a good drawing card, a good team for them to see if we want them to pack our facility. So it goes both ways. So we got to build those other rivalries that normally would not be a rivalry. Somehow, somewhere, we got to sell that to our folk, to where our folk are coming just as much for, Mamby Pamby U as they would for Jackson State U.
Well, put a button right there because I guess it's waiting. But there was a time, here I go, back in the past, and I know our fans are a little bit different now than back then. Winning helps a lot.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Southern and Northwestern State, I always bring that up. That was a rivalry that became a rivalry. Southern football team had success. And it wasn't a matter of, well, they're not going to bring anybody. We're playing good. We have an outstanding football coach and outstanding program. We don't care. Just come on in. We're going to give you a spanking, and then we'll send you on your way. But we'll come back to that, Willa. I want to introduce our guest, Rodney Kirschner, who's going to be a busy man. You saw that commercial, Swag MEAC Challenge. They're going to be at the press conference the next day after SWAC Football Media Day. But Rodney Kirschner joins us now on the Carlos Brown Show. We're just going to pull him up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, ding, 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 ding. Where's Rodney?
Yeah.
Well, let's see. We'll get him because I was told he was waiting.
Well, Carlos, I want to add, piggyback quickly off of what you said about other folks, other teams. You had Roman Banks on a while ago, and there's one game, Carlos, we talked about. What was that? Southern and who?
Who was
Southern
that?
and Southeast Louisiana.
Oh, come on, Charles.
The Jaguar Nation would pack Strawberry Stadium. They'll have a record crowd. But then if you return the game to Mumford, will the Southeastern crowd, well, you can't rely on other teams' crowd, of course, but would that be a game in which you could get that same return? Two schools 45, 50 minutes away. Would that answer the question? You talked about Southern Northwestern State in the past. I'm just referencing Southern and Southeast Louisiana in the present.
Hadn't played in 30 years. Series ended up 1-1. Guess what? To me, if I'm negotiating that, because I know Southern can fill up Strawberry Stadium, which seats less than 10,000. Let's put that out there, okay?
Yeah.
We'd have to do a 2-for-1. 2 for me, 1 for you. And if you don't like that, well, goodbye. That's as simple as that, Coach Petaway.
So you all haven't played in 30 years. Wow. And you that
1985.
close. And you that
Yeah.
close.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Because
See, that's what
in Louisiana, you have a lot of FCS programs. You got Nickel State, you got Southeastern, you got McNeese. Southern's play ULM. They're FBS in football. They played Louisiana Tech, played ULL. There's a lot of FCS football programs in the state of Louisiana. Now,
but then we talk, but Carlos, didn't we talk about regional playing so that you can? It to me it helps with expenses if you can
Yeah.
do regional play. I think you have to continue to play these people in order to develop that rivalry. Now, if you wanted to be a rivalry, you got to play them. You can't
It
have a
takes work.
rivalry if
It's
you
just
never
not.
play.
It's just not gonna happen. It takes work.
I hold the cards. I hold the cards because from a market standpoint, in a position of strength, I don't have to play Southeastern. I really don't. And if I do play them, I'm offering 2 for 1.
Twice at Mumford, 1 at Strawberry.
You doggone right.
Nobody going for that, Carlos. AD ain't going for that.
Well,
Not and keep his job.
that's how I would negotiate it, but I'm not the AD. Okay, let's do we have Rodney? Bring him in. Come on, I'm looking for Rodney.
There he is.
There he is.
Rodney, I see you said taking out my talking points.
You guys are covering it all.
Good afternoon, Rodney. Welcome to the Carlos Brown Show again. Am I being too mean? A 2 for 1 deal for Southeastern because I can fill their stadium up with our fans, but I think we're in a position of negotiating in strength. What say you, Rodney?
Yeah. So good afternoon to everybody. Appreciate you guys having me on as always. You guys are all bringing up the correct points, and as I said last time I was on the show, we have a formula that we've set down and created over the last few years for different scenarios. One is a FCS scenario, for instance, and like you were saying, one of the biggest things about any type of FCS game or any game that we're scheduling is a regional opponent, because you don't want to supersede your travel budget in a sense. So, you don't want to, the MEAC's a little bit different than the SWAC, because the MEAC, they have a lot more closer FCS schools, multitude that they can play more than we can. Most of our FCS schools now are based in Louisiana or Texas. We don't have too many east of us without going too farther, kind of north up into South Carolina. So, FCS opponents, you can battle back and forth what you think about it, but you always want to play the best competition. That's one thing that we try to do at Southern. We want to play the best competition. And then, with your scheduling format, this 12th game is going to help us because now it adds an additional week that you can schedule on. But, it also depends on what the conference schedule is set. And the conference schedule is set right now till 2030, for instance. So some years we play a couple SWAC schools, conference schools in week 3 or week 4, which is earlier than you kind of want to. And so you don't have those four nonchalant weeks that you can schedule games, if that makes sense. So it puts a little creativity and work because, for instance, like you said, Southeastern Louisiana program that we're very familiar with, Coach Banks and I both coach there at Southeastern. Jay, the AD, is a good friend of ours. They discontinued football for so many years, then they brought it back with Hal Mummy. So that's kind of why I think our rivalry stopped back then. But as you guys are bringing up good points, Strawberry Stadium only seats 8,000 people. We know Southern will fill it. But at the same time, as we've been negotiating and having conversations and talks with them, it's also that I'm going to have more than 8,000 fans. So where can they go? So my fans are, Southeastern will probably sell 4,000 or so, I would say, tickets to that game for themselves. So now that only leaves me 4,000 for my fans. Well, RVs are going to come down, especially that close. So it's conversations where can the stadium with handle our type of fan base? Obviously you're going to want the band there. What the HBC pageantry is. And obviously we want to showcase that stuff, but at the same time, logistically, it almost doesn't make sense unless we start getting creativity of like a 2-for-1 type, where we'll host twice at Mumford, or will they give us money to go there? Because we know they're going to sell out. So, for instance, we just got done playing McNeese. We went to McNeese twice. They came to us once, and people were like, well, why'd you do that deal? Well, we did it because we got a guarantee check out of it. So McNeese paid us twice to come there, knowing our fans were going to travel and they were going to sell. And they sold tickets. They had, I think, two of their largest crowds that they've had, and most of their top tier crowds, I think, in their history are HBCU schools. So what type of following we bring. So when you're talking to schools like that, those conversations do come up into it. Northwestern's a great series. We're actually trying to start it again. We're talking about possibly playing in Shreveport. Possibly, obviously we want to have a home game out of it. But so, we're negotiating some guarantees, some things like that, trying to put some support behind it. Because we know our fans will travel, especially in a 4-hour window. Really, our fans will go anywhere. But, we know that our fans will travel. So, you try to take some of those games serious. We've played in Northwestern State 12 times. Nicholls State, we've played 20 times. So Nicholls State's one of our oldest rivals from an FCS standpoint. That's why it was important to kind of get it back on the schedule. Unfortunately, we know what last year's outcome was. We look forward to going there in the future. But yeah, it's just you kind of got to take all those conversations into it. Because like I said, for our landscape, FCS schools, we want to play the best competition, whether it's Division II, whether it's FCS or whether it's FBS. You want to play the best that you can, but logistically, it's got to make sense. And so that's why for us, like I said, regional games come important. So with this new 12-game schedule, we will take advantage of it, but we're just trying to figure out what's the best option for us. What years do we need to have guarantee games? What years can we add an additional home game for our fans so we can try to give our fans 6 home games instead of 5, because we always try to have 5 is our goal at home. So, you look at all those things. So, like I said, we have different formulas that we kind of plug and play. And trust me, I'm sitting there. You saw on my scratch papers, I write all these people out. And then, because a lot of people don't realize it takes a lot to move, not only a team, a football team, it takes a lot to move a band logistically as well. So, we're running into some of those stuff right now with us going to Fresno State this year. I got to move, 275 people in our band, almost, I think it's like 2,700 miles, across the country. So, we're working on that. Then I got to work the team out. So it's how to get the team out there. Now we're talking about when does our equipment truck need to leave? Because our equipment truck needs to leave at a certain time. So then now we're looking at our practices. So, what's our practice schedule look like? Can we change our format up so our truck can get out a little bit earlier? So it's things like that. Most people don't realize our band travels on 6 buses. Our team travels on 3 buses. So, like I said, logistically, you're always looking at stuff like that. So your regional games, you want to make sense, but you kind of know an FCS opponent, especially if we play like an Incarnate Word, who's traditionally been really good last couple of years in the Southland. We know that they have a smaller stadium in San Antonio, but they're not going to travel, probably less than 1,000 fans back to us, so then it's on us to how can we market that game and try to sell tickets, to our fan bases and how do we get the people going, and that's a challenge, especially after COVID. It's a challenge because, TV contracts come into it now, TV games, people are more comfortable because they don't have to fight traffic or the weather. They can stay home and watch the game, so you're going into those, those conversations that you have with your marketing team and, all your team of folks of, how can you get people to the game is the bottom line.
Right. Hey, Rodney, I got one question for you. Like right now, your season ticket prices are set for 5 home games. In the year that you add that extra home, if you add an extra home game, does that mean that the season ticket prices increase?
We don't want it to.
Definitely.
We don't want it to, but that's a possibility, and that's something that we're looking at right now, because right now at Southern we have some of the cheapest season tickets in the whole SWAC. For $85 you can get a season ticket in our end zone, and so that's all 5 games, $85, and so we go from 85 to 170 is what our season ticket packages are. And then obviously our suites are a little more expensive, but we have some of the cheapest tickets, in the SWAC, and we're trying not to price gouge our own fan base out, because I think you can do that in a heartbeat nowadays. Where you got to kind of think about the family of 4 that's coming to see Southern maybe for the first time,
Right.
and then if we're lucky to have a Jackson State or Alcorn, at home, that environment's going to be electric, and then you get to hear both bands. So the pageantry, the basically the showcase of Black excellence, is on display. So you want that family to feel comfortable coming there. But, all of a sudden you talk about 4 tickets, you don't want to price gouge them out, then concessions, so those are things you try to take into consideration as well. But that is something that if we do add a 6th game, what does it look like with our season ticket package? Again, without trying to, we all need money. We all know that. That's the bottom line. Everybody needs money, but at the same time, you still want to make it convenient for your fans, and you don't want to price gouge, especially your season ticket holders. You don't want to price gouge them out.
Would you, if that happens, or is there a need for it to happen, would you guys look at doing a market study to see how much you could, if you have to raise season ticket prices, how much would it be where it won't affect the overall base of your fans? Because I believe, and we kind of talked about it a little bit last week, majority of our fans, at least at Southern, I would believe that they're kind of 40, 50 years old. Would that, if you put the data information in, would that be how the average Southern fan would look and supporter?
Yes. If you traditionally look at all the data that we've collected, because we've done some case studies around it, especially because we're a Ticketmaster platform, and we're Ticketmaster because a lot of us, for us at Southern right now, it's more convenient because we have the Bayou Classic and right now the Superdome is a Ticketmaster facility, so it's kind of easier on that. But we understand the fees that Ticketmaster and some of these other platforms have on top of that. So through our case studies, yes, our season ticket holders, their demographic, they're a little bit older, and they've, you look at their history of giving, some of them go back 20, almost 30 years, of season tickets or books. So they're definitely, you keep that study going and try to, like I said, there's no right or wrong answer, but again, you're trying to keep the supply and the demand that where you think economically it makes sense.
Yeah. We've been with Rodney Kirschner, Deputy Athletic Director for Southern University. And for those who don't know, Rodney, you're the guy in charge of the scheduling, the football scheduling, right? Just for the record, right? Okay.
Yes,
Well, we got questions in the, the chat room. I still have some points to cover. So you kind of talked about the FCS and having those 12 games. So, Southern University, we could probably put them in the category that they're going to take advantage of the 12 games, correct? For the record.
Yes. Yeah. We're most definitely we're looking at every year we'll play the 12.
Now, with that being said, can I move a little bit to SWAC spring meetings? Any notable changes that will affect our conference as far as some of those things that happen in the meetings that you could talk about?
Yes, and I think everybody's kind of trying to wrap their head around it. But the biggest news to come from the NCAA is the House settlement, and we've been in talks since probably February, coming up with plans, and it seems like every week we're coming up with a new plan, and then all of a sudden, there's new information that comes out, so you kind of got to rip that plan up and go with the new plan. But that's kind of really the biggest thing that came out of the SWAC meetings, was just the House settlement. The fact that now we can financially compensate players directly from your university. Before, we could not do that. We had to go through NIL collective, for instance. But now we can directly have a revenue share with our student athletes. So it's one of the biggest things that came out. And then obviously just kind of some of the rules that you got to follow with the House settlement, with basically all our all our NIL now has to go through their own legislation, the College Sports Commission. So you have to turn all the contracts in through NIL Go. Anything over $600, you have to, like I said, you have to turn it in, and they deem if the contract's worthy or not. And then also now we have cap limits. As we opted in, we have cap limits on our rosters. So, for instance, like men's basketball now can have 15 scholarships, but they can only have 15 players. So you can't go beyond your cap limit. So that whether you outfit or you scholarship full 15, but if you only go 12 or 13, you can only have 2 walk-ons. Now this year, obviously they're grandfathered in some players that you could put on a list that you just didn't know if they were in the transfer portal, if they're going to come back. So this year your rosters can kind of be 18, 19 guys, but that's something different. For men's basketball, for instance, it's 15. Baseball completely changed. So you don't have the 11.7 model anymore of scholarships. Now you can have 38 baseball players. That's your cap. And so it's up to the university how you fund your scholarships. And so, there's creative ways that we're coming up with it, to try to give Coach Crenshaw an advantage that maybe some other universities might not. It doesn't mean we're going to fully fund 20 and above scholarships, but, we're trying to get to that 13, 15, and then let him break them down, the equivalency that he wants to give out the scholarships. But, soccer's changed with their cap limit, volleyball. Like I said, it's affecting all the sports. So football is 105 now. So we're kind of away from the traditional 63 model, 63 with 85. It's kind of what we did with scholarships. So now, they can go up to 105.
Well, Rodney, how, as far as Title IX, how will that affect this House settlement? Because I can just see some of the women athletes, wanting to get their share or as much as they can. Do you see some trouble down the line as far as Title IX is in effect with the House settlement?
I do. And I don't, I can't speak for other universities, but going down the line, I think you're going to see a lot of universities, and I know a lot of universities have talked to us in the SWAC because, for years we've been getting by being creative, with our scholarships. And so now other universities are trying to figure out, are they going to go to like a tier system? So they'll have their tier 1 sports, which might be their top 4 revenue sports, then their tier 2 sports that they'll, fund in some capacity, then their tier 3 sports. And so, at Southern, nothing's going to change with our Title IX sports. We're going to fully fund them, and we're fully committed to our Title IX. But I can see some challenges down the line.
Right.
So,
hey, Rodney, let me ask you this: when they come up with all these new things for you all to do you all as athletic directors, administrators, do you all talk to the other schools in the conference to see if is there collusion? Do you all talk about how you're gonna handle this stuff?
Yes. Yeah. So we all have a good relationship with most of the, obviously all the ADs, because we're almost at every sporting event together and things like that. But no, we do. I know AD Bryant and I talk quite a bit. Coach Banks and Ashley talk probably once a week. And then, obviously AD Brown, Dr. Cable, Dr. Scott, so we do, we do. But at the same time, you always kind of want to hear what people are kind of coming up with, or ideas they have, then bring it back to our university, and then how can we make it in our framework work, if that makes sense. Because, we all know that we have some certain challenges with funding and money, but, like we tell our coaches, that just can't be an excuse. We won 5 championships this year. that's the standard we're trying to get back to at Southern. We won, for us, it's our 244th SWAC championship that we won overall as a department. So, we're trying to get back into our winning ways. So we try to avoid excuses, but try to find the way, how you could fill in those gaps, if that makes sense. Corporate sponsorships for us the last several years has been huge. 80 Banks has raised almost 1.4 million the last 4 or 5 years. We just don't tell our fans directly on the corporate sponsor side what we're able to fundraise, and then how we're able to put that back into scholarships and travel and things like that. Because not only did we add two more schools to our conference, so we were a 12-team conference now instead of the traditional 10 that we've been for so long. But your travel goes up now. It's not the easiest to get to Daytona. And Daytona is a resort city, so most of the nice hotels on the beach, they all have a resort fee. They're priced out pretty high. But you can't control that. But it's things you got to take into consideration. And how do you get your teams there? Do you feel comfortable putting them on a bus for 12 hours, or do you need a fly, or so things like that. Adding those two teams has changed some of our, travel budgets and things like that. And then obviously, right now we're all facing inflation, after COVID. So, gas, charter buses, food at restaurants, it's just all gone up. So you got to take that kind of fluff into it as well.
And speaking of traveling and football facilities, I got a chance to look at the new turf. That's going to happen. It looks like the foundation has been laid. Talk about some of the facility updates that you are having going on right now, and what you would like to see in the near future.
Yeah, so we're we live in South Louisiana, so it's been raining every day. So that's kind of put a damper a little bit on our turf project. Luckily, we had rain days built into it, so we knew that. So I think right now they're at the other 35-yard line. So we got almost 100 or 85 yards laid down right now. So that will be complete in the next 2 weeks for us, is our new turf that we're very excited about. And then, we're trying to work on a hitting facility for baseball, a covered hitting facility for baseball, softball is something that we'd like to do. So again, we know the climate we live in, where we live, but you need something where the kids can come in and kind of hit and practice all year round. We're working on getting a golf simulator for our golf program. We found some space inside FG Clark Activity Center, so we're working on that. So that way our golf team, both men and women, will have a chance to work on, all year round on their competition and get them ready. We're just finishing our new tennis courts located between our baseball and softball field. So we had to move our tennis courts because we're building that new welcome center. So we're excited about that tennis facility, get those nice and surfaced and everything. And then future projects, we got some scoreboard up projects we'd like to do. And then, right now we're also trying to work on an indoor practice facility for not only for football, but all our sports will be able to use it. But we're not necessarily fully indoor or, fully covered, but just, basically just a rendering of where it's covered out of the elements, and our student athletes can go in there and practice and especially when it rains.
Hey, Rodney, what about you all building a ferry, man, for the river back there? So on football game day, you can get out, you can get off the campus, put us on the ferry and get us out of there.
We would love to find another way. Trust me, we would love to find another way. And that's part of our logistical challenges too. We have 3 ways on to our campus and 3 ways off.
Yeah.
And so when you have especially homecoming, or you have Jackson State, or Alcorn there, that really puts a lot of pressure on there, especially a campus that, when you really start looking at the parking spots and the concrete surface areas, we really don't have that much parking on there. We struggle with graduation on our campus. So when you put another 20,000 of RVs and cars, it makes a lot of congestion, and it's a lot of work with city police, state police. There's a lot of law enforcement entities that we have to work with, because a lot of people don't realize we can't do anything outside of once you cross the hump, we can't do anything.
Right. It's a great atmosphere, though. I love it, man. I love it. You just gotta have patience. That's all.
Yeah. We're working on it. We're, like I said, we've met probably already 6 times now, trying to come up with more traffic plans, policies, to try to help us. We know homecoming last year was something else. That's the easiest way to say it. It became, we didn't have enough police in certain areas, and we didn't have enough, traffic control outside of campus, and that put a lot of pressure on the campus itself to try to get people in. So, things that we, like I said, we talked about it, but we do case studies. We have, after game reports. We have traffic reports, things like that we all try to look at and take into consideration.
Well, Rodney, I want to apologize to you. I want to be the first person, the second, to apologize to you, because when we played Southern on your homecoming, I broke every campus law that there was to get on that campus for the broadcast. I had to get behind our bus. I had to pass up fans. Where we parked by the tennis court, it was so much congestion, I had to drive up on the curb. I damaged the grass. So I wanna issue a formal apology. I probably should have been arrested and taken to jail, but I had to do what I had to do to get in. But it was a great atmosphere, though. Yeah. I've never seen that atmosphere like that. The traffic backed up to 110. That I've never seen that before. We were on that main street. We've been backed up past the McDonald's and all that before, but not to 110. But it was back to 110 4 hours before kickoff. So I just want to commend you guys, but I just want to apologize because I had to break the law to get on campus.
No, we understand. Especially if you having to get on air at a certain time. Trust me, I know.
Oh, yeah.
And that, like I said, we had an unprecedented amount of fans that came. We almost had right around 90. They said 93,000 fans.
Ooh.
So, and you got to think in almost a 4 mile square radius. So, we had people, and a lot of our fans didn't even get a chance to get on campus. So things like that. So, but again, we're taking all that, like I said, we're taking all that into consideration. We went through the reports. They moved our homecoming parade. That backed a lot of it up that morning. And then it just was a kind of a domino effect. And so things like that we're really trying to, like I said, look at it and stuff like that. Because, a lot of people don't realize we contract people out that, do these, that work our parking lots, that come up with plans with us. And, I don't think that people realize how much law enforcement and contractors we have. But again, we only have 3 ways on campus and 3 ways off. So when you get a high volume of congestion, it can, make it difficult like it was for that time.
Rodney, can you spare a few more minutes? We have to take a break. And boy, speaking of that, I wasn't as bad a shape as I thought. I actually literally walked about 2.5 miles, and I made it. On that note, we're going to take a time out. We're visiting with Rodney Kirschner, Associate Deputy Athletic Director for Southern University. We'll come back after this timeout. You're watching the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return. Well, I guess we won't take a break.
Okay.
I was told we was going to take a break.
I think the dog is upset about that too.
Yeah, they don't like when
And when Boy made a comment, the dog didn't get on campus. That struck a nerve with the dog.
Oh yeah, someone said it sounds like the dog didn't get on campus either.
That's a good one. I like
that stuck a nerve with it. Rodney, can we take a couple of questions? It was one about the website having a new look, or are they going to update it? That was one about the athletic website.
Yes, as far as us like re-releasing a new updated look, I guess I'm kind of confused on the question.
Well, let me. Go ahead. I'll look it up.
Yeah. I know we are looking into. You try to anymore every 3 to 5 years. You kind of try to revamp the website as much as you can and give it a fresh look, and we're looking into that. To answer, I guess, that question on that.
Yeah. I can't see it. I know someone sent it to me. the schedule, and you kind of talked about opportunities with guarantee games next year, University of Houston. Um, Past that point, is there a certain criteria you're looking at? Does it have to be geographically close, or will you see cross? Well, I don't know if we'll see a cross country matchup, but is it geographically where you're going to be looking at in the future for as those payout games?
To be honest with you, and to be transparent with you guys, we look at all options. I don't think when you get contacted by certain schools, you just don't want to, kind of already to say, no, we're not going to do that. You kind of want to look in the options and see, one of the biggest things for us, as we go through our formulas, is that we know our value, and I'm not saying other schools don't, but we have a certain price point that we don't really even negotiate till you reach that price point. And a lot of it is just because we know our value, and then our value goes up on if you want our band there, our cheerleaders, if you want the whole display of what the human jukebox is, along with, our fans, so we just kind of have stepping stones and stepping blocks, I guess you say, through our formulas that we look at. So we're, we get with Coach Graves, he's not afraid to play anybody, which is great, but you're just, financially it's got to make sense. And then, like I said, logistically, geographically, regional, you want it to make sense. Biggest thing is we just don't want to undervalue ourselves. We know that we got Monroe, La Tech, Southern Miss, Troy, even Rice, within a 4 or 5 hour window. So, we have contacted schools like that. ULL, we're actually trying to do a home and home with ULL in the future. But, it's just kind of what does that make sense? Like I said, financial wise, what do we need? But at the same time, we're not going back to La Tech or Southern Miss in the future for less than what they gave us the previous time.
Wait a minute, Rodney. My ears deceive me. Did I hear home and home with ULL?
Yes. Yeah, we're in conversations with AD Brian over there about the possibility. Because again, we know our value, but they know our value too. And you look at ULL, we played them a couple years ago, and they got one of their highest attendance games in the whole is Southern University. So like I said, we don't take that to head that that's not the reason we're not trying to play somebody, but at the same time we know our value.
No, I understand.
And AD Banks puts that on us that he knows our value, and so like I said, it just has to we have our formulas that we plug and play, and like I said, we stick by those because we think they work, and it's no offense to Cajun Nation because they're a great fan base as well, but the Jaguar Nation is a special fan base, so we try to make sure that some certain things like that make sense, and that's the thing. We just got to kind of cross our T's, dot our I's, and make sure that we're not underselling us. It doesn't make sense for us to go play a game at an FBS school for $200,000, when we previously got $450 before, and then all of a sudden they want us to bring the band, bring this, or try to sell this many tickets, or so things like that. We just go through like I said, we go through our list, and that's the big thing. We just know our value. We know what Jaguar Nation brings.
Well, Rodney, I got a quick question for you.
That would be a first, Charles. A FBS team coming to a FCS if it happens. Yeah,
that would be awesome. That would be an awesome thing to happen. Rodney, we talked about this a few months ago. All right, so there's a school in this conference that's getting $1 million payday to play a football game. And we talked about it on this show. What if Southern University got that call from that same school for $1 million, and we had a discussion about it on this show? Some said no, heck no. Even though it's $1 million, just depending on just the size of the opponent. If you got that call from, let's just not say Ohio State. Let's say it could be Michigan or Michigan State. Or would you take that call, number one? And would that be a no-brainer? Yes, considering the price tag and if all the other variables worked out.
So first of all, we definitely take that call. Again, we don't shy away from any of those conversations. Same that we do for men's basketball, for instance. Because we have to bring so much guarantee money in for men's basketball. So, we're not afraid to play the traditional blue blood schools, as you would say. But again, you just got to go through your checklist and see what the value is. I commend Dr. Scott for playing it. I just don't. At the end of the day, what type of return on investment are you going to get? And that's kind of the way you got to look at it, because your travel expenses are going to probably exceed 300,000, 350. Are they helping with that? And I can't say they are. They're not. But I can tell you guys honestly, we were one of the first schools that Notre Dame called a couple years ago. I think Tennessee State ended up playing, but we couldn't get the money right, so to speak, because they wanted our band there, but they had certain restrictions on the band. They only allow so many people to march on the field, so there's things like that you just got to kind of take into play. And then again, how do you transport not only our student athletes, but our equipment team, our sports medicine team, our support staff, and the band? How do you travel them that distance safely? The days are kind of gone when you can just put a team on a bus for so many hours and expect them to perform anything. Then again, it's also what week are they trying to play you? What's your schedule look like? You don't play them week 2 and then turn around and play Jackson State in week 3 when you're going to have to probably fly. And you got to consider with our kids sickle cell. So you got to take into elevation. Different aspects of where you're going to the country to play. So those things all come into play into it.
Yeah, hey, excuse me, hey, Rodney, help me with this. You said that they talked about how many people could be on the field. I've never heard of that. Would you explain that, please?
Yeah, so they don't allow. So like it's not the team, it's more the band. So they only allow, because it's a grass field. They don't let you bring out so many instruments. So like Purdue has a big drum, for instance, that they don't let Purdue bring that big drum out there. So
Wow.
So like they have stipulations, which you kind of understand because it's a grass surface. So you can understand that the beating it takes, in the first half of the game, and then marching, 250 people on a field. You know what I'm saying? So
Wow.
you can you obviously you're listening to what they're saying, but at the same time, you just got to take that in. Does it make sense? Because at the end of the day, our obligation is we look at financial. How much money are we going to bring home? And then secondly, how much money is it going to cost us to go there and play? And then obviously, the third thing is you always worry about safety. Safety and recovery.
Yeah.
Are the big things now, because again, you don't want to get yourself into playing a game, a big money game, and then turn around with 4 or 5 days rest and then having to play a big conference game. For us, conference games matter. I think you guys talked about it last week, but we're one of the few FCS schools, us in the MEAC, that have a championship celebration bowl. Where you have a chance to make $1 million. Us going to FCS playoffs doesn't really help us, because you have to pay almost all the expenses, and the NCAA doesn't reimburse you much. I think it's only 40% of what you spend.
Right.
And traditionally, when you look at FCS playoffs, Southern, we fortunately can't really worry about that, because we always play Grambling in the Bayou Classic on the first weekend. But you traditionally look at the FCS playoffs. Most of our teams have to go to the north, so they're playing North Dakota State, Montana State. In late November, December, so it's cold weather. And they got to travel there. FAMU was lucky a couple years ago and got a great matchup with Southeastern. But that doesn't always happen. So for us, your goal is obviously to win the West. That's our main goal, is to win the West, have a chance to go to the SWAC championship game. Obviously, we haven't had a chance yet to host it at Southern. That's a goal of ours. We want to host the championship game at Southern, because the team that hosts the championship game keeps everything. They get the gate, concessions, parking. They get it all.
Wow, that's amazing.
Which is great.
Yep. Hey, now, Rodney, last question from me. Out of all 12 of the SWAC schools, in your opinion, how many do you think will increase scholarships?
It's a great question. I would probably say 10 of us. And I would say everybody would like to. I would say that. I want to say everybody would like to. Again, us having the cap doesn't mean you have to. You can still do your old model.
Right, correct.
We're used to, but it's just now that you have an option, and a lot of that's predicated on the Power Fives. Because we opted in, and Southern and SWAC opted in. So we have to follow those new rules, but it doesn't mean you have to.
Right.
You have to abide by that or not that. But those are conversations. Like I said, we've had different formulas, different conversations how we can increase it. But we're looking at, our scholarships are probably going to increase almost $500,000. For us to fund some of our sports and things like that we just think that we need to do. So, AD Banks has been, hard on the trail with our corporate sponsors, private money, donations. He's met with all of our booster clubs, so they've kind of all been in the loop, of understanding what's going on, and kind of what this new outlook looks. Because, like I said, it's a new age in college athletics. NIL has changed the landscape, but for us at Southern, we already kind of had a cost of attendance model in place, so now we get a chance to increase that cost of attendance per sports. So, that's how we're kind of handling NIL. And we've created some collectives. So we have like the Bluff Collective that is for our basketball programs. We have the Graves Edition. We have our S Club. So, we have different donation platforms that you can go. So, but it's just, like I said, it's ever changing. And I think that's what a lot of people don't understand is that, we can meet. We were in Orlando a couple weeks ago at our national convention, and we were meeting with Clemson. And we were actually meeting with Ohio State, funny as it is, and schools like that. And even like their models are, like I said, that's what they are. They're just models. They're, it's hard to project where this is going, but, you got to have some type of plan, and like we tell our coaches, no matter what, our kids got to go to class and the ball is going to be rolled out or tipped or, we know that part's not changing, but now it's behind the scenes stuff because I think KJ, our basketball coach, came on here a couple weeks ago and kind of told you guys it's recruiting's 24/7, and you have to recruit your kids just as much as you're recruiting other kids.
Right.
And the tough thing a lot of people don't understand is that you only have one shot to really talk to a kid. If you talk to a kid now, he might like you or not like you, and then after that, he's put you on the phone with the parent or an agent, and they're talking about money or this or that, or it's not so much of, like I said, that one-on-one communication that you kind of used to have with player relationship. So it's, like I said, it's ever changing. And like I said, whether they like to do it or not, even after a tough loss, they still have to get on the phone and talk to recruits.
Right.
And so it's, like I said, it's definitely changed the landscape of the game.
Definitely. So, last thing, and we appreciate the time. You're going to be busy, you and Coach Banks. Then the following day, you're going to be in Atlanta for the SWAC MEAC Challenge press conference.
Yep.
Talk about that. You got your traveling shoes ready?
yeah. Trying to get everything packed now. It's going to be an exciting few days. I think it'll be exciting to, media day is always a great day. You're going to showcase, all the great players in our conference, but, our coaches and, just a good pageantry, like I said, of the conference. And then, the next day we got this MEAC SWAC Challenge press conference in Atlanta. So we're excited about that and excited to face North Carolina Central.
Wow. I think I need to pack too, but I'm not going away, but just a turnaround trip for the SWAC football media day. Rodney, we appreciate the time. We look forward to talking with you again soon for an update. A lot of information given out today, and we appreciate your time.
Yeah. No, thank you guys. Appreciate all you guys do.
All right. Thank you. That was Rodney Kirschner, Associate Deputy Director of Southern University Athletics. We'll be able to go over a little bit because we started late on today's show. So let's see if we can take a time out this time, and when we come back, it'll be more of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. We shall return. Well,
guess you won't.
Well, I guess we won't. All right. Well,
that was interesting, man. That was interesting with Rodney, man. I like that in-depth coverage. That's great.
And I thought about Wheeler. I thought about Wheeler because you know what, Wheeler? You always say it's tough. You speak
Mm-hmm.
your mind. Um, we affectionately call you the hardliner, but I can see why.
Mm-hmm.
It's not an easy job.
Not at all.
You cannot make all the people happy all the time.
Mm-mm.
Some of the time you can't make any of them happy.
You got that right.
But you just stand on your truth and once
Mm-hmm.
again be transparent. So that was an interesting interview. I'll
Yep.
get a chance to go back and look at it, but my ears, I was like the dog that was barking in the background. My ears perked up.
But you know what I took away from that I really like, Carlos? They
ULL coming
they
to
talk. They talk
huh?
together. I like the fact that the ADs and administrators in the conference are talking because I think as a group, we got to figure out how to best navigate this new athletic era. And
Hmm.
I like the fact that they're talking to each other.
Hmm. And he also brought up the booster groups because I get this question a lot of times. Um, and I've been saying collective. Let me go back and apologize. It's cost of attendance is what Coach Banks talked about coming on. I mean, he talked about a collective, but more so the cost of attendance. And so
Mm-hmm.
when Rodney brought that up, I thought about that. I don't know why I kept thinking about collectives, more so the cost of attendance. With that being said, ULL coming to a FCS football stadium, Wheeler, that would be a first if that
Yes, it
happened.
would. Yes, it
That would
would.
be, and
Hard sellout.
well, some people in the chat room say it should be a hard sellout. But look, Willa, some of our fan base, they've told me the heck with playing Southeastern and Nichols. They want to play ULL and ULM. Will it be a hard sellout? I don't know.
Well, it
Oh yeah.
probably will, but if I'm the folk at ULL, you know that if there's an upset involved,
They won't
somebody's
come back,
head
huh?
gonna roll at ULL. So yeah, I would be kind of a little hesitant in terms of making that particular deal.
Because
Well,
it,
that
it
would.
it usually doesn't happen that way.
No, it doesn't, but
No, I mean,
anything's possible, and
Yeah.
it's more likely to happen,
oh yeah.
on the road than it is at home.
Hmm.
Well, if it's a home and home, I mean, if it's a home and home, hey, I think
Get it, get it locked in.
get it locked in. I think Carlos, that place will be packed. I mean, you got two schools. What? How far is it from Baton Rouge to Lafayette? 100 miles or so.
Now that's how I travel. I get there in 50 minutes,
Okay.
45,
I don't know.
45 minutes. But I'm not the buses and stuff. It's
Yeah,
about, let's say, 55 minutes, almost an hour.
an hour. Okay, yeah. So I mean, I
Hmm.
think it would make perfect sense. I mean, I say Southeastern because it's, and I keep referencing Southeastern only because it's an FCS program. They've been in the playoffs. We talked about the playoffs. That's the only reason why I bring it up. I just think to me it sounds logical, but I'm on the outside looking in. You know more about it. Kirschner knows more about it. So that's the only reason why I'm bringing up Southeastern. But if that happens, Carlos, an FBS school going to an FCS site, that would get a lot of headlines because that doesn't happen too
Hmm.
Well,
often.
yeah. And Charles, you heard what he said about Southeastern. Same thing. Willa, the same thing I said. The
Hmm.
stadium seats only, he said 8,000. I was shortchanging him a little bit. 7,000. You can fill up that stand. No.
Yeah.
It would be, I'm almost thinking about a 3-for-1, but that won't happen.
One gonna say 3-for-1.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a 2-for-1. But when you look at it, winning, can you just imagine? And someone was asking me the scenario: a Western Division title, and you get back to the championship, and then you fall short again. What would happen? I don't think anything bad would happen. I'm just thinking, hey, they got another step closer. But just think if they win the West, win the championship. And by the way, Swag Football Media Day coming. Before we get out of here, we can give our little predictions. I didn't put up a graph for that, but we can do that. But you're looking at a fan base that I always say starving for that championship. And not only just in football. Coach Pettaway, you got to win it and be competitive in all the sports.
Right.
That's what I look at as well. Yeah, call me arrogant, call me cocky. Yeah, that's how I am. I really am.
We could not contain you, Carlos, if Southern University makes it to Celebration Bowl. You will be so happy. And I think that would be one of the most well attended Celebration Bowls if the Jaguars make it to Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
In my opinion.
Yeah. I would agree. And then also Jackson State was in there heavily last year. And Coach Pettaway, I'm going for the conference. I was pulling for Jackson State. Can you believe that?
Yep.
Yeah, and they represented themselves well. But I don't know. Boy, I may not come on for a week. I couldn't contain myself. Quickly, NBA free agency. Of course, I'm gonna start off Coach Pettaway with my team.
Okay, Miami Heat. Let's look at it. I think I got everything right here, ready to roll. Okay.
Quietly made a good move.
You all got Davion. You picked up Davion Mitchell. You picked up Norman Powell, Simone, the French guy from the Pistons. So now, but you lost Kyle Anderson. You lost Kevin Love. And here's where I think you hurt yourself. You lost Duncan Robinson. Now that's Miami.
Yeah, and Duncan Robinson, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then re-signing, you all haven't re-signed anyone yet. So now I don't see where this team has improved. Norman Powell is going to help, but I don't see where Miami's improved, Carlos. So I'm hoping they got something else up their sleeve.
Well, they do 2026, Coach Pettaway. Yeah. I was kind of hinting about that last week and 2 weeks ago. Remember, I said I was okay with going with the youth movement, putting stock in those young players. Does that mean you have to give up a couple of years? Now, Pat is totally different. He believes he can just kickstart it and get back to that top echelon. I don't see it. But I'm okay with the youth movement. Put those young players in the center, focus, and get things done. Now, where's Guinness going? We don't know. Maybe leaning to staying with Milwaukee.
I think he's going to stay because when you look at it, they added Miles Turner and Gary Harris, and they waived Damian Lillard. Now, according to the reports, he did not like the fact that they let Dame that they waived Dame. And then also they gave up Brook Lopez left. So now that's their other big center. But Miles Turner is a younger player and he can do what Brook was doing. And he's a better defender, a better post defender than Lopez. But now I think at this stage, Giannis is going to stay. I think he's going to give him another year. But they re-signed. They re-signed Kevin Porter. They got Bobby Porter's in there, Prince, and they Garrett Trent re-signed with the Bucks. So they got a nice crew together, and I think that they did enough to keep Giannis there. In my opinion.
Interesting.
Yep. Now let's look at the Knicks. The Knicks added Jordan Clarkson, and then they added one of the foreign kids to their roster. But they haven't re-signed anybody. Those are the only two additions that they have. Did that put the Knicks over the hump? With the East as being as weak as it's going to be next year, I think the East is up for grabs. The East is up for grabs. But everybody, in my opinion, is going to be chasing Oklahoma City again because they re-signed all of their Shea Gildas got a contract. I think just yesterday they signed Jalen Williams. So they got Chet Holmgren. So they signed their big crew. The only person they lost was Dylan Jones. He went to the Wizards. So he left a championship team to go to one of the worst teams in the league. But Oklahoma City, I think, is going to repeat if they can stay away from injuries.
The blueprint. OKC, Charles. That's what I'm trying to tell Pat. That blueprint is right there. You already got the culture. That's the best way to get it done. Rebuild, go young, and improve.
Yeah, but I think when you're talking about, this is just my opinion. When you're talking about major market teams like a Miami, like a New York, like an LA, like a Dallas, like a Houston, I think with those teams, when you talk about rebuild and take a step back, I think that makes fans of those teams uncomfortable. And I think even though the Miami Heat have done well, Pat's done a nice job. This whole idea of taking a step back, even though that probably is the right thing, our fans going to be accepting of that. I would say, in my opinion, no. But I think a number of teams are going to are making decisions. All these teams that had major injuries, Indiana, letting trade Miles Turner. I mean, Rick Carlisle was ticked off about it. Halliburton was ticked off about it. You got Dame Lillard, how he was treated. Even though he's getting paid, but Giannis wasn't made aware of what was going on. And then you have this whole story with my team, the Lakers, the drama with LeBron. What's going to happen with the Lakers? What's going to happen with LeBron? LeBron wasn't involved in even with the team being sold. He was not told first. He was told second. I'm just wondering as an NBA fan, it was been a superstar league and it still is. But a lot of these stars are hurt going into the season. Is there still going to be a level of interest outside of OKC? I would say yes. Will Golden State rebuild? Will Houston with Kevin Durant? How's that going to look? Even with the New York Knicks, I mean, the Knicks didn't make many moves, but you hire Mike Brown. Is he the answer as far as a head coach that can get the Knicks to the championship? I'm talking about the NBA championship or win it. I think that's another question. So there's a lot in the bag. It's a lot more drama than I would like to have, but this is what we got, especially with these guys being hurt going into this season.
Right. And then of course out west, the Phoenix Suns, they just re-signed Devin Booker. New this year, they brought in Dylan Brooks. They got Jalen Green from the Rockets, Nigel Hayes, and Mark Williams. Now, this is what I don't understand. How can Mark Williams go to the Phoenix Suns when the Lakers traded for him at the deadline and he couldn't go to the Lakers? I don't understand some of this stuff sometimes.
Right.
He felt the physical, I thought, but I could be wrong.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So what makes him? So why is he gonna pass it now?
It was a miracle. Holistic medicine.
Yep. So you just got a bunch of teams. Charles, you mentioned Houston. I think Houston is a team that's going to create some problems in the West for a lot of people because they have put together a pretty good roster. And when you add you adding Kevin Durant and you giving up Jalen Green, who didn't come through for you in the clutch, so they have improved from that aspect alone. But I think Houston is one of the teams. They got Clint Capella, Durant, and Dorian Finney-Smith, another wing person that can guard and guard multiple positions. So and then they kept the core of their team together. They re-signed Steven Adams. They re-signed Jeff Green. They re-signed Jabari Smith, and Fred VanVleet signed for 2 years. So they kept the bulk of their team, Carlos. So Houston is probably one of the teams that improved the most in the free agent market.
I still say OKC won. I say watch out for Denver. Quality, it was kept. Houston, I say in 2 years, watch out.
For who? Oh, for Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Well, now when you talk about Denver, now they brought in Bruce Brown. They brought Cam Johnson from the Nets, who's used to losing now. Then they got Tim Hardaway Jr. and Valanicius from the Kings. So now they lost Michael Porter Jr., who I thought was a big part of their success, and he could guard two positions. So I don't know now. Other than that, unless they're going to do something else, I don't know if they really improved that much.
Well, Houston will have to show me because they've got all the pieces there. It's going to be more of a chemistry issue. They can get that down. That's why I'm not saying they won't be there, but I say in 2 years, watch out. If you ask me a championship for them in next year, no. But in 2 years, watch out. Denver, they just still a good solid base. And Johnson, to me, I just like him. You know, Porter Jr. can play two positions, can guard. The only thing with him was he was injured. And you know, with that being said, it's gonna be a good mix. But OKC, and I'm gonna say out of the East, it's gonna be between Cleveland and New York, and then watch out for Orlando. But Cleveland and New York, 1 and 2.
Right. I agree.
But there are two teams we haven't talked about in the West. What about Minnesota and what about the Clippers?
Okay.
We haven't talked about the Clippers of Minnesota.
Gotta show me, Charles.
The Clippers, all they did, they brought in John Collins and Brook Lopez. Now Lopez will help them because that was been part of their problem in the paint. You said the Clippers, and who was the other team?
Minnesota. I was just saying Minnesota and the Clippers. We haven't talked of the top tier teams. We haven't mentioned Minnesota or the Clippers in months.
All right. Well, Minnesota has not had any additions now. So far, they have not had any additions. And all they did, they re-signed Ingles, they re-signed Randall, and they re-signed Nas Reed. But they have not added anybody.
Yeah. And I'll say this,
to me, they still got holes.
And then with Denver, I don't know if you all saw the headlines over the last few days, but the Joker's representatives are saying that he may not extend until after this season coming up to see what this thing looks like. So if you're talking about the Joker hedging, that changes Denver's fortunes going forward.
Right, but the other thing too now, he knows that if he waits till next year, he can get more money. He's worth more money next year. So now it's not all about looking to see the lead. I think it's looking to secure a larger bag.
And 2026 is going to be as equally huge or more than the 2025 free agency.
Right.
LeBron and et cetera. So you always got to think. Well, you always got to think ahead.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, but I think at this point, he and his agent, they're looking at having a larger bag, because if he signs now, it won't be as much as he's eligible for if he waits till next year.
Mm-hmm. And as I say, the lack of money is the root of all evil to some. And so you can't say, well, hey, you live in a capitalistic society, get as much as you can. That's just on the NBA level. And the salary cap shot up to $154 million. So if the players are getting a good bag, the owners are getting a good bag.
They're getting a great bag. If the players great bag, the owner's getting a great bag.
Correction noted. You're right, Coach Pettaway. On that note, we want to thank everybody for tuning in. AD Drew came in to rescue us, producing. So we appreciate that. All of the fans and supporters, we appreciate you as well. Black College Sports Network, Pod Zone, #1. That's something to build on, and we shall continue. Hit the thumbs up button. Also, advertise with us, the Black College Sports Network. All of the shows, we are one team, we're a family. Until next Saturday at 11 a.m., We appreciate you, and we'll see you for another edition of the Carlos Brown Show right here on the Black College Sports Network. Until next time, as always, peace and God bless.